Okay, let's unpack this. You know those moments in history class where you read about a war starting over, like a bucket or a stray dog?
Oh, yeah. You think surely it's more complicated than that.
Exactly. You think there is no way that's actually true, and yet here we are. Because if you've been checking the headlines this week, you might think you've stumbled onto a satire site.
Mm-hmm.
The United States is in a massive, nail-biting diplomatic standoff with its closest European allies. The reason: the president wants to buy Greenland.
It sounds absurd when you actually say it out loud. Buying Greenland. It's like a game of Monopoly where someone just decides to flip the board.
But here's the thing, and this is why we're doing this deep dive. We have to stop laughing because the source material we've pulled, intelligence reports from Brussels, memos from London, analysis from Davos, this is being called the deepest internal crisis in NATO's history.
That's the assessment. And it's not hyperbole. We are not talking about, a rude phone call. We're talking about a cascade of events.
A cascade that's led to what?
Emergency troop deployments, threats of full-scale economic warfare, and a very real possibility of the Western alliance just fracturing.
That is terrifying. So the mission for today is simple, but it's urgent. We're going to look at these so-called Greenland tariffs.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to explain this retaliatory weapon Europe is considering, the trade bazooka. What a name. And we need to talk about why rivals like Russia and China are reportedly watching all this with a box of popcorn.
It is a self-inflicted crisis, and the stakes couldn't be higher.
So let's start at the beginning, the offer. Because I think a lot of people are asking, why? Why Greenland? Is this just ego?
That's the right question. You have to separate the method from the motive.
Okay.
The motive is actually quite rational, geopolitically, I mean. Greenland isn't just ice. It sits right in what's called the GI-UK gap. Greenland, Iceland, UK. It's the gateway to the North Atlantic.
So this is about controlling shipping lanes.
It's about shipping, yeah, especially as the Arctic melts. But it's also about resources. Greenland is sitting on huge undeveloped deposits of rare earth minerals.
The things you need for batteries, for fighter jets.
Exactly. For everything. And right now, China dominates that market.
Yeah.
So the U.S. wants to break that monopoly.
Okay, so the interest is rational. Strategic real estate.
The interest is rational. The method, well, that's where things went off the rails.
Yeah.
President Trump expressed a desire to purchase the territory from Denmark.
And Denmark, predictably, said no.
They didn't just say no. They explained a constitutional reality. Under their laws, sovereignty belongs to the people of Greenland, the Inuit people.
So it's not Denmark's to sell.
It is literally not their asset to sell. So it wasn't just we don't want to. It was we legally can't.
In a normal world, that would be the end of it.
You'd think so.
Yeah.
But because of this refusal, Trump has threatened new punitive tariffs on European goods.
And this is where the language in our sources gets really, really intense. I mean, Denmark used the word blackmail.
Blackmail. That is a heavy word. Allies just don't use that word lightly. But look at it. Give me this territory or I will destroy your export economy.
It's linking trade to a real estate deal.
Exactly. And it wasn't just Denmark standing alone on this, was it?
No. 8 European countries, including the UK, put out this very strong joint statement. They warn that these threats risk a dangerous downward spiral.
A downward spiral. That is diplomatic speak for we are about to crash the car. They're drawing a line in the sand.
But Trump has a counter-argument, right? The White House is framing this as a security issue.
That's the narrative. Sell it to us so we can save you from China and Russia. But Europe's response to that is, I think, the most shocking detail in these reports.
The troops?
The troops. European troops have been deployed to Greenland in recent days.
Wait, let's just pause on that. You mean actual boots on the ground?
Yes. It's a physical signal. It's Europe saying, we take Arctic security seriously. We're already here. We do not need a U.S. landlord to keep us safe.
That feels like a massive escalation. We're not just fighting with words or taxes anymore. We are moving military pieces on the board.
And that is why experts are calling this economic war. It's moved way beyond a disagreement. And caught right in the middle of all of this is the UK.
Yeah, I really want to dig into that because post-Brexit, the UK is in such a weird spot. There's supposed to be this bridge between the US and Europe. And Keir Starmer, he was supposed to be the guy who could handle this.
Right. Remember the Trump whisperer narrative?
I do. The idea that Starmer had found this pragmatic way to manage the relationship.
But he could be the translator, the intermediary.
How's the whispering going?
Well, the whispering has turned into shouting, or at least very stern talking. There was a phone call between them recently about this exact dispute. And the bridge collapsed. The official diplomatic readout described it as robust but agreeable.
Robust. In British English, that means they were barely keeping it civil.
It's definitely code for a serious confrontation. And the proof is in the punishment. The UK is now one of those 8 countries facing higher taxes on goods sent to the US. Specifically because the UK signed that letter supporting Denmark's sovereignty.
That is just, the irony is incredible. The UK leaves the EU to get sovereignty, and now they're being punished by the US for siding with their European neighbors on, what else? Sovereignty.
It highlights the brutal reality of their position. And this puts Starmer in a terrible spot at home. He's under massive pressure from UK businesses who are just terrified.
Because these tariffs aren't just numbers on a page, are they?
No. I mean, if you're a British manufacturer and you suddenly get hit with a 25% tariff, your business model just evaporates overnight. They're worried about these tariffs biting.
And it's affecting his schedule, too. I read he wasn't even planning to go to Davos.
That's right. The World Economic Forum wasn't on his agenda. But now sources at number 10 are suggesting he might attend. He has to. He has to manage this crisis in person.
Okay, so Starmer is scrambling, but the EU as a whole seems to be gearing up for a fight. I keep hearing this phrase, and I love it, but I also fear it. The trade bazooka.
It is a colorful name, isn't it?
What on earth is a trade bazooka?
It refers to a very specific piece of legislation. Officially, it's the EU's anti-coercion instrument, or ACI.
Break that down for us.
So the ACI was designed to let the EU slap massive, rapid sanctions and trade restrictions on any country that tries to use economic bullying against a member state.
It's weaponized trade policy.
Exactly. But here is the critical detail. Usually, EU foreign policy requires unanimity. Every single country has to agree.
Which makes it slow and weak.
Right. But the ACI works on qualified majority voting, so a few hesitant countries can't stop it. It allows the EU to move fast and hit hard.
Okay, but here's the crazy part, right? It was designed with China in mind.
That's the supreme irony. The whole point was to protect Europe from Chinese economic bullying. They never, in their wildest dreams, thought they'd be debating using it against the United States.
You build a weapon to defend against the East, and you end up pointing it at the West. So are they going to pull the trigger?
That is the million-dollar question. And it is causing a deep divide in Brussels right now. You have the strike back camp, led mainly by France.
President Macron. Right, sounds about right.
It does. The French view is that power respects power. They believe if you don't use this instrument now, when you're being openly blackmailed, then it's useless. They want to retaliate big time.
And the other side.
The hold fire camp, Germany, some of the smaller trading nations.
Yeah.
And this gets to the brutal dilemma, the trap that Europe is in.
What's the trap?
Well, think about it. Damned if they do, damned if they don't.
Okay.
If they retaliate, they risk alienating the U.S. even further.
Yeah.
And Europe desperately needs the U.S. for security, for NATO, for helping find a peace deal in Ukraine.
You can't really start a trade war with the guy holding the nuclear umbrella that's protecting you.
Exactly. But if they don't retaliate, if they continue this softly approach, they risk looking extremely weak. They basically prove that their sovereignty is conditional on American approval.
It's a lose-lose. And that tension must be palpable at Davos.
Oh, absolutely. The vibe there is shock, disbelief, and a lot of panic. The reaction from business leaders has been described as beyond parity and beyond reality.
Beyond parity, that really sums it up.
One CEO called it a self-inflicted authored crisis. Markets hate this kind of turbulence. But it's more than just stock prices. There's a real fear now that existing trade deals, they're all suddenly questionable.
It's about the sanctity of a contract.
Yes. If the U.S. can threaten to blow up trade relations over a rejected property deal, what is a contract even worth? Risk goes up, investment freezes.
And there's another financial layer to this too, right?
A huge one. You have to remember that Europe owns a massive amount of America's debt.
Oh, wow.
So if this escalates and Europe decides to start, dumping U.S. treasuries, the collateral damage to the global financial system could be catastrophic.
So while the West is infighting and threatening each other, who benefits?
Well, you can guess.
Russia and China?
One diplomatic source said Beijing and Moscow are watching this with a big box of popcorn.
Just sitting back and enjoying the show.
And why wouldn't they? This is the best possible outcome for them. Their whole narrative is that the West is crumbling, that it's not a real alliance.
And this just proves their point for them.
It signals to every other nation that the West is distracted, divided, and dysfunctional. It opens the door for them to say, why rely on the Americans? Come do business with Beijing instead.
Okay, so this is a dangerous mess. What happens next? Is there a timeline we should be watching?
There are two critical milestones in the next few days. The first is in the United States.
What's happening there?
The U.S. Supreme Court. They are expected to announce a decision on Tuesday about the legality of Trump's tariffs.
Oh, this is huge. How does the Supreme Court factor in?
It's all about authority.
Oh.
Usually a president uses national security to justify these kinds of tariffs. But legal scholars have been arguing that using it for a real estate deal is a gross abuse of power.
Right. Not selling you an island isn't exactly an invasion.
Exactly. So if the court rules that the president does not have the authority to impose these specific tariffs, it could change everything instantly.
It would pull the rug out from under the threat.
It would. Trump could blame the activist judges and move on. The crisis might just de-escalate.
And if the court doesn't stop it, what's the second milestone?
Thursday, there's an emergency summit in Brussels. That is D-Day. That's where the EU leaders have to decide whether to pull the trigger on the trade bazooka.
So by the end of this week, we could either see the threat vanish or we could be in a full-blown transatlantic trade war.
We are approaching the brink. And frankly, even if the tariffs are stopped, the damage is already done.
How so?
Because trust is like a vase. You can glue it back together, but you always see the cracks. Europe now knows the U.S. is willing to threaten its economy over something like this. That changes the whole psychological calculation of the alliance.
It pushes Europe towards that strategic autonomy idea.
It pushes them to say, we need to be able to survive without America.
It's just so hard to wrap my head around. We started this talking about buying a country, which sounded like a joke, and now we're at the potential collapse of NATO unity and economic warfare.
It just shows how fragile these alliances can be. We assume the West is this unshakable monolith, but it turns out the wrong disagreement can cause cracks that go right to the foundation.
It's a scary thought. Allies becoming adversaries overnight.
And, there's this theory that Trump often chickens out. He threatens big and then backs down. But world leaders aren't betting on that. You don't deploy troops to Greenland if you think it's a bluff.
That's the part that sticks with me, the troops. So here's where we leave you today. It's a question I think we're going to be wrestling with for a long time, whatever happens on Thursday. If the West is defined by the unity of Europe and America, and if that unity can be shattered by a dispute over real estate, does the West, as a geopolitical power bloc, actually still exist in the way we think it does?
Or is it just a memory we're all holding on to?
Something to think about. Thanks for listening to The Deep Dive. We'll be watching Tuesday and Thursday very, very closely.
See you next time.